Hello everyone, this is Helios Raven. I tell you how you do it, even if you don't care. And today in our in-depth look at the forces of Battlefleet Gothic, we're going to look at the Tyranids, one of the most infamous armies in all the, 40k universe. Not because they're strong, because they're massively evil or anything like that. It's mostly because they are the most universal enemy of pretty much every force. There is no force that ever allies with the Tyranids, because the Tyranids just won't do it, because they're mindless beasts, and all they think about is infest, consume, destroy, and evolve. And in Battlefleet Gothic, they were made one of the most monstrous forces in the close quarters combat degree. Not in terms of weapon barrage, batteries, anything. I'm talking about boarding actions and the like. These things are very nasty when they get up close and personal, and they just refuse to die without a fight. And we're going to look into them today, and the first thing we're going to look at is their special rules. The first thing is synapse control. The Tyranids do have synapse control rules in Battlefleet Gothic, and what it is during the movement phase, each hive ship can make a command check to take charge or ignore instinctive behavior, which is another special rule that the Tyranids have. And for their command check, they don't get to roll their command checks or anything. They actually have to pay for a command value on the hive ships, the battleships and such. And instinctive behavior, then they have to, and they make a leadership check for themselves, and they make a leadership check for themselves or another ship/squadron within 45 centimeters. If the test is successful, the Tyranid player has control of the ship/squadron and may place it on special orders if desired without requiring a second command check, which is really nice. Attempts to use synapse control counts as a command check, so a hive ship can keep testing their command check until it is failed. This is because since the other ships don't have a command value, the hive ships count as being the commander for all the ships, so they basically get to roll command checks until they fail. Now, however, if one hive ship fails a command check, this does not prevent another hive ship attempting to use synapse control. In effect, each hive ship can make at least one attempt to override instinctive behavior. This basically so the only time you can no longer perform command checks is when all of your hive ships fail their command check, which is really, really awesome. Basically, it gives you a higher chance of getting your command checks to pass and everything. And Tyranid ordnance, fighters, assault boats, and torpedoes are not subject to synapse control or instinctive behavior, just move them like normal ordnance. And in terms of movement and special orders, all Tyranid vessels have the following instinctive behavior, unless the hive mind, i.e. you, the player, tells a ship or squad to do something different via the psychic conduit of the hive ships. If a ship or squadron is using instinctive behavior, read down the table opposite and give the ship/squadron the first appropriate action or special order you come to. No command check is needed for special orders, but there may be specific activities that must be undertaken in the vessel's movement. Basically what this is if you do not get a ship under Synapse's control, you go to this chart. I'm not going to go over this entire thing because it is fairly lengthy. There are 7 steps, and what you do is you look at the first step and see if you meet the conditions for that. If you do, you flip over to the yes column and see what special order or action that the ship takes. If no, you drop down to the next one until you hit a condition that applies to your vessel, and look over to see what special order or action is taken. So basically, what it is if you do not get control of your army, or if your army's all out of 45 centimeter range from a synapse creature, there's a good chunk of your army that's not going to follow your orders and just do its own thing, which is fairly bad. But the trade-off is the fact that the benefits of all the command checks you automatically pass, and the fact that if you pass one command check to take control of your vessel, you don't have to take another to give it special orders. You just give it whichever special order you like. Now, they also have special rules for navigation. All Tyranid ships are naturally adapted void-swimming organisms and make all leadership checks to navigate celestial phenomena on a default leadership of 10, which is really nice. Basically, it's very hard for them to fail. With shooting, Tyranids always target the nearest enemy ship unless a special Vanguard drone ship highlights another enemy within range. No leadership test is allowed for Tyranid ships to select a target other than the nearest. Ordnance markers are always ignored and may not be fired on at all. So basically, you're stuck with firing at the closest ship possible, and you can't shoot at ordnance at all, and you can't make a leadership check to ignore this rule. Unless, with Vanguard drone ships, highlight all enemies, including ordnance, within 15 centimeters of the Vanguard drone ship. And these can be targeted freely by another vessel in the Tyranid fleet, which are within range, without requiring a separate command check to ignore the closest vessel, which is really good. So, of course, obviously, you want to have at least 1 or 2 Vanguards in your force, because that's a really nice. And boarding. Tyranids are basically monstrous beasts at boarding. They basically latch onto a ship and attack. And so, Tyranids will always count double their boarding value, plus they roll 2d6 and use the highest result in boarding actions. Tyranids ignore blast marker effects when boarding enemy vessels, which is really awesome. And hit and run attacks. Basically what this means is when the ships are so vast and hard to discern what are weak points, and they do a lot, and they're a lot of self-healing and big on self-preservation and such, that any hit-and-run attack against a Tyranid ship rolls 2d6, and they take the lowest result. Tyranid ships can make hit-and-run teleporting attacks just like other ships in the end phase. The Tyranid player adds +1 to their result when making hit-and-run attacks, which is really awesome. And then they have one other special rule that involves other ships called All is Lost. Basically, if basically the ship, a lot of armies will rather, do an Andros theory of fighting Tyranids when they get boarded by "I'm taking you down with me." And to represent this, capital ships can attempt to self-destruct when boarded by Tyranids by passing a leadership test in the end phase. If the test is failed, the crew must face their terrible fate at the hands of the Tyranids. If the test is passed, roll a d6. On a 1 through 3, the ship suffers a catastrophic result of plasma drive overload. On a 4 through 6, the ship suffers the warp drive implosion result instead. So basically, okay, your capital ship is about to be attacked by a Tyranid vessel. The Tyranid vessel has a really high chance of surviving while you don't. Well, then you can go, "Well, I'm taking you down with me." Roll a leadership check, and if you pass, you roll and your ship blows up, hopefully taking out the Tyranid vessel with it. So, but if it doesn't, then the boarding action happens as normal. And just a designer note here that the designers wanted to give here. I deliberately opted to trade off Tyranid ships becoming less offensive when crippled, but remaining difficult to finish off. This is to encourage a greater resilience on reliance on escorts to protect the larger vessels, and to encourage hive ships and cruisers to attempt disengagement, boarding actions, or ramming when crippled. Okay? And it is very the Tyranids are one of the really hardest armies to make them go down. They do not give up without a fight, that's for sure. And I'm running out of time, so we're going to put a close on the special rules for now, and we'll continue it in another video. Until then, this is Helios Raven, signing off.